Hey there. YouTube doesn't allow videos to be more than 15, and chapter 4 is kind of lengthy, so I'm going to divide it in two parts. This is part 1 of chapter 4 of the circuit. Chapter is titled Miracle in Tent City. We called it Tent City. Everybody called it Tent City, although it was neither a city nor a town. It was a farm worker labor camp owned by Shihi Strawberry Farms. Tent City had no address. It was simply known as Rural Santa Maria. It was on Main Street, about 10 miles east of the center of town. A half a mile east of it were hundreds of acres of strawberries cultivated by Japanese sharecroppers and harvested by people from the camp. Behind Tent City was dry wilderness, and a mile north of it was the city dump. Many of the residents in the camp were single men, most of whom, like us, had crossed the border illegally. There were a few single women and a few families, all Mexican. Mama was already expecting when we moved to Tent City from Corcoran at the end of January, after the cotton season was over. By May, when the strawberry harvest started, she was only a few weeks away from giving birth, so she did not join Papa in the fields picking strawberries for Ito. She could not bend over, and picking on her knees was too hard on her. To make ends meet, Mama cooked for 20 farm workers who lived in Tent City. She made their lunches and had supper ready for them when they returned from picking strawberries at the end of the day. She would get up at 4 o'clock every morning, 7 days a week, to make the tortillas for both meals. On weekends and all during the summer, Roberto and I helped her. Once Papa left for work, Roberto rolled the tacos while I wrapped them in wax paper and put them in lunch bags. At 11:30, Roberto carried the 20 lunches in a box and delivered them on foot to the workers who were given half an hour for lunch. When he returned, he and I washed dishes in a large aluminum tub. We then took care of our youngest brother, Trampita, while Mama took a nap. Around 3 o'clock, she would start cooking dinner, which was served from 6 to 7. After supper, Roberto and I again cleared the pots and washed dishes while Mama fed Trampita. On Saturdays, she did all the grocery shopping for the week. Because we did not have an icebox, Papa made one. Every 3 days, he went into town to buy a large block of ice, which he kept wrapped in burlap and placed inside a hole he dug in the ground by the entrance to our tent. The hole was twice as large as the block of ice, living room on all 4 sides, and on top for things to be kept cold. Even though Mama was always tired from all the work she did, she made sure everything was ready for the new baby. She asked Papa to seal the base of the tent by piling extra dirt about 6 inches high all around it outside, so that animals, especially snakes, could not crawl underneath during the night. When Papa had finished, Mama pleaded with him to build a floor. He agreed, and every evening after he came home from work, he sent Roberto and me to the city dump to look for discarded lumber to build a floor inside our tent. Our trip to the dump was always an adventure. We waited until dusk after the dump caretaker left before raiding for treasure because we had no money to buy them. When he went home in the evenings, the caretaker locked the more valuable items such as used clothing, car parts, and broken lamps in a makeshift shed. The larger pieces, mattresses, box springs, broken pieces of furniture, he left outside leaning against the storehouse. Besides lumber, I collected books, hoping to read them once I learned how. My favorites were those with pictures. Late one evening, thinking the caretaker had left, Roberto and I sneaked into the dump. The dump keeper, who had hidden behind one of the mounds of rubbish, took us by surprise. He chased us, yelling and cursing in broken Spanish. We were scared and went home empty-handed that night, but we went back several more times until we got enough lumber to complete Mama's floor. We also found pieces of linoleum laid them over the wood to cover the holes in the slivers. The different shapes and colors made the floor look like a quilt. On one of our trips, we found a large wooden box that that had become the crib for the new baby. Mamma took an old green army blanket, tore it in half, and lined the box with it. She made a little pillow with stuffing from an old mattress and cloth from a white flour sack. Mamma also made sure the entrance to our tent was always closed to keep out the smoke and odor from the camp's garbage dump, located directly in front of our tent, 20 yards away. It was a large rectangular hole dug in the dirt, about 6 feet long by 4 feet wide and 3 feet deep. On windy days, the foul smell of the city dump competed with the stench of the tent city dump. The older neighborhood kids killed snakes and threw them in the garbage hole when it was burning and watched them sizzle and squirm. I cannot figure out why they twisted and turned in the fire after they were dead. It was as though the fire brought them back to life. Once Trampita got too close to the garbage hole and fell in. Roberto pulled him out. Luckily, it was not burning. From then on, Papa did not let us play near it. When the baby was finally born, Roberto, Trampita, and I were excited to see him, especially because we had worked so hard to get things ready for him. Papa and Mama named him Juan Manuel, but we all called him Torito, Little Bull, because he weighed 10 pounds at birth. He had a chubby, round face and curly brown hair. I thought the nickname Torito fit him because he had a strong grip. I would put 2 of my fingers in his tiny hand, and when I tried pulling away, he would not let go, and I would kick, and would kick with both feet. When Mama nursed him, he closed his eyes and played with her hair. Whenever I changed his diaper, I made him laugh by tickling his stomach. I liked playing with Torito because he was always cheerful and because he helped me forget about the report card I got in early June, a few days before he was born. Miss Calapino, my first grade teacher, said I had to repeat her class because I did not know English. About 2 months after he was born, Torito got sick. I knew there was something wrong with him when he cried off and on all during the night. The next morning when I tickled him, he did not even smile. He looked pale. Mama, who had not slept much that night either, touched his forehead. I think Torito has a fever, she said, a bit flustered. Please look after him while Roberto and I prepare the lunches. I touched my forehead and then Torito's to see if I could tell the difference. He felt a lot hotter. I then changed his soiled diaper. It smelled terrible. That afternoon, Mama had to change him often. His thighs and bottom got as red as the back of Papa's sunburned neck. By the afternoon of the following day, the aluminum tub was almost filled with soiled diapers. To rinse them, I got water in the bucket from the faucet, which was located a few feet from the outhouse in the middle of the camp. Luckily, I did not have to wait in line too long. Only one woman with 2 buckets was ahead of me. Once she finished, I filled my bucket and carried it back to our tent. I poured the water in the diaper tub and rinsed the diapers with my right hand while I held my nose with my left hand. Mama then heated water in a pot and poured it into another tub and washed the diapers on a washboard and hung them up to dry outside on the clotheslines Papa made. Mama bathed Torito in cold water several times a day, trying to bring his fever down, but it did not do anything good. In the evening, we prayed for him in front of a faded picture of Virgen de Guadalupe, which was tied with string to the canvas wall above the mattress. One night as we were praying, Torito got worse. He stiffened and clenched his arms and legs, and his eyes rolled back. Saliva dribbled from both sides of his mouth. His lips turned purple. He stopped breathing. Thinking he was dead, I started crying hysterically. Roberto and Mama did too. Trampita got scared and began to whimper. Papa tried to pry open Torito's mouth but could not. His jaws were locked. Mama picked him up from the box and held him tightly against her chest. Please, God, don't take him away. Please, Mama repeated over and over. Torito slowly began to breathe. His arms and legs relaxed. I could see the brown color of his eyes again. We all sighed with relief, wiping our tears with the backs of our hands and crying and laughing at the same time. No one slept well that night. Torito woke up crying several times. The next morning, Mama's eyes were puffy and red. She took a lot longer than usual to make the tortillas and the lunches. After Papa left for work and Roberto and I washed the dishes, Mama kept her eyes glued on Torito. She gave him water and tried to nurse him, but she was not producing enough milk, so she prepared him a bottle. By the afternoon, she could hardly keep her head up. Roberto and I convinced her to take a nap while we took care of Torito. Mama had trouble falling asleep. When she finally did, Torito started crying. She jumped out of bed, picked him up in her arms and rocked him, trying to calm him. Once he quieted down, she asked for Roberto and me to clean the beans to cook for supper. "That's all we'll have tonight," she said apologetically. "Frijoles de la olla. I hope the boarders won't mind." "They won't," I responded, placing the bean pot on the kerosene stove. That evening, after supper, Mama laid Torito on the mattress to change him. When she pulled the front of the soiled diaper off and saw blood, she screamed at Papa, "Viejo, he's getting worse. Look, there's blood in his stool." Papa rushed over and knelt on the mattress next to Torito, who started to moan. He felt Torito's forehead and stomach. "He still has a fever," Papa said pensively. "His stomach feels hard. Maybe it's something he ate. If he doesn't get better soon, we'll have to take him to the hospital." "But we don't have any money," Mama responded, sobbing and looking sadly at Torito. "We'll borrow or something," Papa said, putting his right arm around Mama's shoulder. Papa was about to continue when Doña Maria, our next-door neighbor, interrupted him. "Can I come in?" she asked, poking her head in the entrance to our tent. Doña Maria was known in Tent City as La Curandera because she had a gift for curing people using different herbs and chants. She was tall and slender and always wore black dresses that matched the color of her straight long hair. Her skin was ruddy and pockmarked, and her eyes were deep set and light green. Tied around her waist was a small purple velvet bag that jingled when she walked. "Come in," Papa answered. "I've been hearing your baby cry," Doña Maria continued. "What's wrong with him?" "We don't know," Mama answered. "Could it be the evil eye?" asked Doña Maria, holding the velvet bag in the palm of her left hand. "He is a very handsome child." "El mal de ojo?" "No, I think it's his stomach. It's as hard as a rock. Feel it," Papa responded, bringing the kerosene lamp closer to Torito so she could get a better look at him. Doña Maria gently rubbed Torito's stomach with her bony right hand. As soon as she pressed down on it, he groaned and started to cry. She turned him over on his stomach and with her left hand pulled up a fold of skin from his back and then released it. After doing this 3 times, she flipped him over on his back and asked Mama to bring her 3 eggs. She cracked the eggs on his stomach and massaged him gently with them. "The eggs will draw out with the sickness," she said confidently. Torito stopped crying. Mama seemed relieved, but I was not relieved. There was something about La Curandera that made me nervous. Moments after Doña Maria left, just as we were getting ready for bed, Torito started moaning. Then he suddenly stopped. There was dead silence. We all looked at each other and rushed to his side. He was as stiff as a board and had stopped breathing. His eyes rolled back. Mama started weeping. Like Roberto and Trampita, I cried too. I felt very scared. Perhaps Doña Maria made him worse, I thought.